This episode of the Party Loaded podcast is proudly sponsored by Audible.com. Check out their awesome catalogue of audiobooks with over 180,000 titles to choose from. And be sure to grab a free audiobook on us and support the show by visiting audibletrial.com/endgame.
Let's party.
Sup? We're here. It's Party Loaded. I'm Luke. That's Olly. That's Imogen.
Hello.
Doing a casual intro this time. Thought we'd switch it up a bit, you know. There's going to be a lot of those puns tonight.
It's begun.
I love it.
Oh, it's begun.
Yes.
The guys are talking
switching.
about it. The guys are talking about it beforehand. I was like, now you mention it, I can't do it. There's like pressure mounting. But then I realised that I switched back into pun mode really, really easily.
Oh God.
Yeah.
There we
Can
go.
pun under pressure.
Yeah. I'm probably going to do it without even thinking about it now. It's just going to be like a complete under the surface.
You've just
default
switched
mode.
into pun mode.
Yeah, exactly. You know, every segment tonight will be transitioning with a good old. So it's going to be great. Anyway, so welcome to Party Loaded. This is the video games podcast where we like to celebrate episode 60 tonight. We have actually made it to the big 6-0. Congratulations, guys.
So old.
So old. So old. Jamie is seriously old because she unfortunately has had to go and have a nana nap tonight. She's not feeling too good.
She died of old age.
Yep.
Is it a nana nap if it's past 8 p.m.?
Don't know. Does your nana have a nap past 8 p.m.? I'm pretty sure mine does.
I will
Therefore,
check.
it could be a nana nap.
Would know. Mine's
For
constantly
science.
round.
Yeah. I don't know. We could have some naps right now if we wanted to do that while podcasting. We just have to switch into something more comfortable. Hey. All right. That's going to get old real fast. I promise I won't do that anymore. All right. Anyway, so Nintendo discussion aside, which we will do later this episode, we've got a bit of stuff to talk about beforehand. As it happens, this week we have actually been playing a fair bit of interesting new stuff by the look of the list that we've just cobbled together. So yeah. First one tonight, Imogen, I think you should lead with this one because you kind of kicked off with it first and then I jumped on and played a bit of it after you. So tell us all about Orwell.
Grabbed a cozy seat on my bandwagon. Yeah, I picked up Orwell in the Steam sale over the Christmas period. It was cheap and it kind of looked a bit different and interesting. Somebody ages and ages ago when I said I enjoyed Firewatch said that Orwell might be good because it was a bit more of a narrative-based game. And they were not wrong. And we can now add Orwell to the list of games I have completed.
Hey!
And that's not a big list.
It's not. Shut your face.
Exclusive.
It's a pretty exclusive list.
Primo
But can
list.
I just say, so Orwell is a narrative-based game that you basically play the role of investigator. You get access to certain documents and you can choose to upload certain information to Orwell. Once you upload it, they use that information to perform investigations into people, all surrounding attacks on public places. So, you know, a little bit of echo of some real world stuff, and the brilliance of Orwell comes from being removed from fact, but fiction that's close enough to be true, I think. And I think it's adequate. I'm not going to spoil anything because the game has multiple endings. And Luke, have you finished it?
Yeah, I have, yep.
Yeah, so we'll have to chat about what you got and what I got and work all that out. And I know that Jam's going to give it a go as well. But it's safe to say that when I finished playing this game, I needed a hug. It was so much. It was just like Firewatch. I got so sucked in, and you sort of suspend reality for a couple of hours that I was playing. It didn't take very long to play at all. I think it was just under 4 hours I completed the game.
Yeah, I'd say about 4.
Yeah. And I can't remember what I bought it for. It was under $10.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I bought it in sale. I don't know how much it is normally. If Olly, the facts from the ground could look that up, that'd be great.
I have to load Steam.
Please do. Then, because I forgot the name of the studio who made this, because they deserve full kudos for something a little bit different, and you can very quickly realize that uploading information sometimes all of the information isn't a good idea to upload. Is that your experience, Luke, without spoilers?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Like, it's funny that you mentioned Firewatch, because I actually found this game to be a lot less like that and a lot more like Her Story, which I mentioned to you during the week.
Yeah, similar. Yeah. I get that.
So,
Another narrative game.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the thing with Her Story, and we did talk about this going back about a year or so now, when we first played that as a group. Her Story was kind of like an investigative game where you presented with a lot of different sort of leads of information, which in that case are sort of embedded within full motion video. The difference with this game is that it's a combination of different ways to get information. And you are basically like a contractor working for, Big Brother, essentially. Like Orwell as a system is like a mass surveillance system, really. There's no other way to kind of look at it. It's like a government sanctioned one. But yeah, like you can look through like newspaper articles, sort of, blogs, people's individual email correspondence, tapped phone calls, all sorts of different bits and pieces.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Their equivalent of Facebook.
Their equivalent. Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting. Like the whole way that it works is kind of similar to how Her Story operates, in that you can sort of sift through and find chunks of information that sort of further your investigation. But I found that the big difference between the two was that Her Story literally allowed you to go in just about any direction you liked based on the information that you uncovered. Whereas this one, in terms of the story, it was a lot more on rails. Like there was certain timed events and there was a certain sequence to how things had to be uncovered in a lot of the cases. So, for that reason, I didn't maybe enjoy it quite as much as Her Story. I thought that it was a little... the story was good, don't get me wrong, but I kind of would have liked a little bit more player agency. There were a lot of ways to do it, though. I think you're not giving it enough credit. I think the events weren't as timed. I think there was trigger information, if that makes any sense. That could be the case too. I'm actually, so I think it might be a combination of both, because I definitely remember a couple of times sort of dragging information in and then like something happened, or the music instant, like as soon as I scrolled down and it highlighted something. Yeah. Like the music changed. It was kind of like you had to find it. So it was almost like a discovery led. Yeah, rather than a timing thing. Although definitely there are some events that it sounds like we maybe made some of the same mistakes. Like, there was awesome achievements in this. It's really like digging into Steam achievements. When I see games, it gives me a good idea of behind the people who developed it. And I just looked it up. And it is Osmotic Studios is the developer, but the publisher is Surprise Attack, who are the same people who brought out Screen Cheat and Hacknet, which are both really sort of well known for being simple but quite elegant. So that doesn't surprise me at all. You can get, if you get everybody's favorite things, there's an achievement. If you just, helping people stay like in relationships and stuff. So when I looked at the achievements, I saw that we're a little bit more happy to make fun of themselves in a way, like, even though it's quite a serious sort of topic that you're investigating. But it's really full on, and it like Her Story more than Firewatch, I guess. I still got a little bit in Firewatch, but like in Her Story, the full, like all of the hairs on the back of my neck kind of stood up at some point. So I'm like, oh, that really freaked me out. And the ending I got was, couldn't have been further from the truth. Were you satisfied with the ending you got? Did you actually? I was satisfied. Yeah? I was, I feel like, I don't know, we'll have to chat about it, but I feel like regardless of your ending, you get given an option at the end about how you want to proceed. And that really is based off your personal experience as the player and how you view this. So it's not a sort of game mechanic. It doesn't lead you down a path, but you get to choose based on what you think ethically in the situation is right or wrong. Yeah. And that was pretty cool. Yeah. Because the whole time you're like, I'm a player, and you became immersed in it. And it's like they say, or we said many times, like, if I'm in the game and I'm in the story, like we were in Her Story, and we felt like the investigators, and we were like arguing in my lounge room about who was right and who was wrong, and we thought we knew what was going on. You were not right at all. It is not conclusive. You were wrong, and I will stand on that platform until the day I die.
Fine, you can argue with the game devs as well. That's cool.
No, they wrote a thing saying... Anyway, I digress. could have been either ending, Ollie. Trust me, they wrote the game on purpose that way.
I'm very
and it's much
curious.
the same here.
I'm very curious to have a deep conversation with you about this game when people who aren't worried about spoilers are sort of not listening in, because I think I may actually appreciate it a lot more if I become more aware of some of the ways things could have turned out differently.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those ones where when you're in your bubble and you sort of think that, things are pushing you in a particular direction, and then you find out that that's actually not the case and that things could have happened drastically differently, then you do appreciate your circumstances a lot more. I guess I just question how much of that control I really had, but I guess, I'll find out if I ever play through it again or chat to people who've done things, remarkably differently.
I think that's your skeptical mind is... I guess you feel like it was on rails, and I was like, oh, this is amazing. I'm creating my own future.
Actually, one thing I really did like, and I think this is a fantastic game mechanic in any sort of investigatory game involving information that is, questionable at best. I liked how some of the stuff that you found in terms of information was contradictory, and it actually highlighted some of that info in like a yellow color and sort of told you that, if you were to upload this, it actually conflicts with other information that we have on hand. So you actually need to look at all of the different options and choose one, choose which one you think is actually correct.
Yep.
Yeah. And sometimes if you jump the gun and make a choice, like you find out afterwards that you're like, oh, shit, I was wrong about that. And that could, massively affect the investigation. It certainly did for me.
And it's not, it's not like you're looking at this document and you don't highlight bits yourself. It sort of highlights points of information that you can upload, or what they call chunks.
Yeah.
That you can upload. So it highlights them all, and then you have a choice as to whether or not to upload that, or like Luke said, make the decision as to which part of the conflicting information is correct.
Yeah.
And there was some occasions where I jumped the gun, like big time, and it had very real consequences.
Yep.
So, yeah, well, we can talk about it more maybe when Jam's played it, and if, Ollie, you want to give it a go, we do a full this is what endings we got type of discussion. Full spoiler podcast. But honestly, I don't want to say too much, because if you like games like Her Story and investigative stories, and you like being sort of drawn into a web of intrigue, then I think Orwell might be for you. It's $10 US on Steam, so around about Australian 12 at the moment, pending Trump's inauguration, in which I'm sure it will either go way down or way up, depending on who gets shot, I guess. Touch wood.
Yeah.
It's going to be a nightmare. So buy your games now while the dollar is good, would be my advice. Yeah, no, definitely recommend Orwell. It was one of those things I picked up and went, it'll be interesting because it's different. And honestly, it nailed it. Like, I wish that I'd played it last year and it could have been in my Game of the Year contention, because it was really cool. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah. No,
it had beat Firewatch.
I would definitely recommend it for the gameplay time and the price. I thought it was solid little get, and good little distraction for a bit. So enjoyed that one quite a bit. Yeah. Well, let's flick over to Ollie. What have you been playing around with this week? We'll do a switcheroo.
Switching it up.
Shit, I said I wasn't going to do that again.
I said you were a terrible person. Yeah. I wasn't lying. I have started playing The Last Guardian on PS4. Yes.
So, what can you tell us?
I immediately think Mimo should play this game.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Is it for the gorgeous large animal that I can pet and be friends with? I thought so. I hadn't heard much about this game before PAX, so illuminate me.
Okay, so it is a puzzle platformer done in an incredibly similar vein to Shadow of the Colossus, if you remember that game at all, potentially, maybe. It's made by the exact same people, so it would be fair. It was in development hell for a very long time. It's been in production for like 6 years or something silly like that.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's had a rough road. But yeah, it is super adorable. I've basically just finished what will be considered the tutorial and the opening segments of stuff. So essentially you play a human character that you befriend a very large mythological beastie thing that normally looks really scary but is actually entirely adorable when you feed it barrels.
What's the name of the creature in the Neverending Story series? It reminds me of that.
Falcor.
That's right.
It looks
How could you forget the
fuck nothing like that. But okay. Holy shit, you need glasses. And yeah, you befriend this thing and it helps you navigate various puzzles around the world and you try to help it out, that sort of thing. It's entirely adorable, and I have to give them props. They have done an amazing job with the AI and the behavior of this thing. Like, holy shit, they have definitely studied cats and dogs and all that sort of thing and how they act and move very, very thoroughly, because spot on. I'm a fan so far. Like, it'd be very interesting to program semi-awkward AI. Like, it can only interact sometimes with certain things, but doing it in a very natural way to give you hints, and you're like, yeah, that makes sense. But yes, it is a fun little game that I reckon you would love the shit out of, Mimo, so you should play it.
If only you had a PS4 with which to do so.
Yep.
If only.
You will get feels
if
within
only.
the first 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's supposed to be quite beautiful. So, I mean, that's
Visually,
I hear primarily that it's visually quite stunning.
The graphics are quite nice.
Yeah, I guess a lot of the negative press that I heard come out about it probably has a lot to do with the fact that people were waiting for so long for it.
Yeah.
And we all know that makes the longer people wait for it, the more critical almost that people become for it. So, yeah, no, maybe might pick it up in a sale, see how we go. Good recommendation, solid.
Yep.
Speaking of PS4 exclusives, I was going to ask Imogen about her last week after I lent you a little title.
You
Stop
did,
switching it
you
up,
let
Luke.
me... Everybody's on board. You lent me Last of Us, and I know that it sounds atrocious that I haven't played this game, but I didn't own. I had a PS3, I guess.
I think you
but
can
it
be
didn't
entirely
really play.
forgiven given the console exclusive nature of that game. I think Olly,
I've played it.
may
I
be
don't
harsher.
own one.
It was on PS3 though, right? As well.
It was,
Or is
yeah.
it PS4? Exclusive?
Yeah.
I do have a PS3, so
No
okay.
fucking excuse.
I could have played it. But I was busy
Sold
playing
yourself
other
out.
games. I really did. That's all right. It's all about honesty. This is where we come to share and learn, Ollie.
Don't fucking lie.
It's not where we come to learn at all. Where we come to yell at each other about games. So I started playing The Last of Us, and I maybe started to figure out why I didn't play it in the first place, because one thing that it has already done is make me jump out of my skin multiple times, and I don't like it.
Wait, how
like
far
it.
in are you?
Not very far at all. I did like the prologue-y entry scene, which made me cry.
Oh, yeah.
And then I did I'm doing the this is how you play the game thing, and already there's explosions and people that are mushrooms on walls, and this is just, I was like, man, I can't. And I have to control the camera myself, which is difficult. I know these are all very whingy PC gamer issues, but I'm learning. I'll stick at it. I really want to play it because I really like a couple of sort of stories that have come out of it. I mean, I think I've spoilt most of it probably for myself because I've left it so long to play, as well as the fact that I'm a massive fan of Ashley Johnson. And so a lot of times her stuff comes up is in relation to Last of Us and those types of things. But I want to play it. I want to get through it. It's part of my AAA sort of concentrating on some big titles this year. So, but yeah, I remember when it came out, everyone was sort of buzzed about it, but everyone said that it was, a bit gruesome and a bit, bit full on at points, very emotive. So maybe that's why I haven't played it. So I will report back as I progress through it, but just doing the prologue and learning stuff, I'm going to die so many times. So many times. I've already had twice, actually, the game has frozen on me. So I got to figure out what's going on there.
On console?
Yeah, I got stuck. Yeah, there was press circle to do something, and I pressed circle and it just didn't do anything. I couldn't move the camera or anything, so it was a bit weird. I do have gremlins in all of the electrical things in my house, so
I have noticed this.
distinct possibility
Nothing is
they
allowed
reached
to work
the
cleanly.
PS4.
Hey, Imogen.
No.
Imogen, have you tried switching it off and on again?
Hey, see, you're welcome. You're welcome. I was
shit.
waiting for so long for someone to make that joke. It took you all so long.
I can't stop myself now. I will say that Last of Us, for me, is probably my favourite prologue and favourite ending almost ever in a video game.
Wow.
Prologue differently. Ending, I think it probably competes with a few others, but yeah, awesome. And now that you've played the prologue,
Dude,
you know
the
why.
prologue, yeah. The prologue was full on. And I guess I'm yet to sort of see the full extent as to why that was important, but I can make some grand assumptions. But that part where you're like wandering around the house at the beginning and you're like learning like to walk and all of these things and like reading the newspaper and that kind of thing. And it took me like, I was like, I know I have to go into that room, but I know as soon as I do, it's going to be a jump scare. Like, it was just the way everything was set up, you know, and when that guy hit the screen door, when, like, her dad comes back in and, oh, man, no. I'm going to play this during the day or with all lights on or when there's other people here because...
Can I watch the movie Alien with you?
I don't want to. I don't want to.
Or Aliens, the second one.
We already said, like, cure cancer, I'll play games.
Jesus.
No, that's a movie.
Or make it a brilliant thing like Last of Us. I know an Alien is a big gap in my... And watch the internet go mental for the fact that I haven't seen Alien.
Fuck the internet. I'm going to go mental. You haven't seen Aliens? What?
I haven't seen Aliens. I don't like scary movies. What about this sentence are you not absorbing, Luke?
Oh my
God. I don't like to be scared.
They're not scary.
They are. They're big. Then they pop out of people's stomachs and it's gross.
Chest, but okay.
Anyway, I had a traumatic childhood experience with a movie that I was too young to watch, and ever since then I can't. It's too much. I had nightmares for years. Still
but you're an adult now.
I am an adult now, and I still carry those
that's
scars.
fiction. This is reality.
I can't.
You have
it's
that
too
ability.
close to the truth. There'll be an alien that comes to Earth and like lays things in people, and can't do it. I hate
fetish.
I hate the sound of people screaming. I hate like screaming in pain. I can't stand it. So anything like that.
I'm going to start doing that when we play games now. Every time I get shown Overwatch, I'm going to yell in pain. Like, Imogen, why aren't you healing me? I'm in so much agony.
You're going to be in agony a lot, dude.
Oh, shit. Oh, my
Imogen
God.
chooses mercy over group heals.
Yeah. Nice. Chooses mercy because she got none. Nice.
Yep,
Yeah.
none for you.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm actually really glad that you started playing that game. I think it's, you know, regardless of how difficult you may find portions of it to get through because of the subject matter, I think it truly is a game that people need to experience, like particularly that prologue. I think it's important for you to sort of go through that. So, yeah, there were moments playing that prologue myself where even though I was in full process of actually holding the controller and moving the character around on the screen, that I actually forgot I was playing a game and I thought I was watching a movie. So, yeah.
Wow.
It was super cool.
I do like that kind of cutscene, playthrough, cutscene kind of thing. Rise of the Tomb Raider has something quite similar, so
yeah,
I think I'll enjoy it.
Yeah. Is good. There is one sound as you get further in that you will absolutely learn to be terrified of. It goes to something a little like this.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No,
So
I don't think I can play this game.
When you hear that, get ready to shit your pants because it's going to be real. So
maybe this should be the game you guys come over and watch me play instead of Ori in the Blind Forest.
Possibly. Well, I got to play something a little different this week, and I think I can talk about it because, when we go live on Friday, I think we're out of the embargo period. So, Yakuza 0, I have been playing. We managed to get hold of a review copy, so we're checking that out. We'll be doing a video for the channel a little later on that as well. So, have either of you played any of the Yakuza games before? There've been a bunch of them around for a while now.
But it's very well known. I have heard a lot about it, but I've never played one of them.
I think the main series, if I'm not mistaken, is up to about 6 now. I'm not entirely sure.
Yep.
Jesus.
Yeah, so I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who has played none of them, but actually knows a little bit about the series. So basically, Yakuza 0 is set as a prequel to the long-running series. And you're playing a guy by the name of Kazuma Kiryu. He's basically like a young guy who has newly joined the Japanese Yakuza, and the whole game takes place a little way back. It's actually in, I think it's 1998, if I'm not mistaken.
Fucking ages back.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that it's sounds like that long ago.
is it?
1988, sorry. I should get that
wow.
right.
Okay, that's a decent gap.
That's a decent gap, yeah. So it actually takes place in a city by the name of Kamurocho, which is like a fictionalized
These pronunciations.
Yeah, it's a fictionalized city. Like it's a combination of a couple of different areas in Japan, similar to how Grand Theft Auto sort of combines different concepts for major cities and makes their own things. So Los Santos being like a combination of San Andreas. I was just going to say San Andreas. That's another fictional
San Andreas,
city.
well-known city
well
on the
known
west coast of
actual
America.
real city.
San Andreas.
Yeah. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah,
You get shot for saying that.
Don't.
San Andreas.
A lot of people have sort of said to me that the Yakuza series, particularly this game, looks like it could take a lot of leaps out of the GTA book in terms of how the gameplay kind of functions and that sort of thing. And the more I play it, the more I think that that's not necessarily true. So you do sort of run around, third person in a fairly dense urban environment, and in this case you're in the middle of a Japanese city that at times looks more like a neon decorated slum than anything else. The graphics are extremely detailed. It really does well to bring out the hidden character and the grime and the sort of the underbelly of the city that you're running around in. It's got heaps and heaps of character, and I think that if there was one thing I could say about this game, having played a little bit of it so far, it's that it is unquestionably Japanese as fuck.
Almost like it's about the Yakuza or something.
In terms of
almost
the
like
humor,
it's about the Japanese
in terms
mafia.
of the humor
How
more
bizarre.
than anything. So,
Wow.
it's what's the best way to describe this? So
Japanese, apparently.
yeah, no. You know how there's a distinctive style of humor that's evident in a lot of the sort of Japanese anime and a lot of the animated sort of themed games that you play. Like JRPGs have a particular humor style. Like a lot of it is very weird and wacky at times. And it has ultra serious moments, but it kind of juxtaposes those with like sheer ridiculousness at other moments. And this game has that in spades. Like just to give you an example, a couple of the encounters that you have very early on in the game involve you sort of getting involved in street brawls, basically. So, busting up a couple of people who are, disrespecting you and, basically laying the smackdown because you are, the representative of the Yakuza, and people shouldn't be, shaking down others on your turf kind of thing. There's a bit of street wars and a bit of brawling that goes on as a result of those sorts of things. There is a moment where you actually come across two drunk guys that are basically taking up the alley that you're in, and they're in the way and you can't actually get past them. And there's these lines of dialogue that are along the lines of, let's help to sober them up with our fists, sort of thing. It's just hilarious. Oh my God. And there's a bit coming up that I'm aware of that I think that, Imogen, you probably love, involving the guy actually taking on ownership of a pet chicken. So, there's some weird shit.
Wait. Is it to fight the chicken?
No.
Make it a fighting chicken?
He actually has the
I'm not
option.
down.
He has the option of having it cooked for him for a meal, and he chooses to keep it as a pet instead. He's a fucking hardcore brawler Yakuza guy with a chicken as a
With
pet.
a pet chicken.
That's the way it should be.
Weird. It's just
That's
weird.
the way it should be, yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta have a soft spot.
Can you imagine how scary that would be? Like, this guy's super hardcore and he's a gangster and he kills all these people or whatever. He's super threatening. And he has a pet chicken. He's so messed up, man.
It's crazy.
It's all part of the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
There's so much to do in this game, though. Like, there's ridiculous amounts. You actually get introduced fairly early on to the game's karaoke system. I was just like, oh yeah, of course it's fucking karaoke. And
You can sing karaoke?
Well, it's done sort of rock band style where you have to, do the button combinations in the right sequence to actually, get the song in key. Yep.
For shame.
So it's very difficult for people like me who are crap at those sorts of games. But it does actually serve as a useful training tool for the brawling elements of the game. So, if you're able to actually nail a bit of the coordination when it comes to the singing, then it does make you a little bit more coordinated when it comes to hitting the right buttons in combination for the brawling mechanics of the game. And that's the other big difference too. Like, it actually has a really detailed close quarters fighting system, which I actually like a lot. So there's a huge skill tree to do with it. It's it's not just a case of running up and punching a dude. You can learn a whole bunch of different combinations, and there's kind of like energy bars that fill up, which allow you to do sort of super powered moves, and a lot of objects in your environment, like you can pick up trash cans and throw them at dudes' heads and all sorts of stuff like that. So that element really gives the game a lot of replayability because it allows you to sort of learn different fighting styles and mix it up quite a bit. And I guess that's probably the element of the game that replaces what you would normally have in regards to the driving. So, most of the game you spend on foot, or a lot of the transport from location to location is done via cutscenes. But, instead of, mucking around actually doing that driving element, you're basically, learning the combat stuff instead. So that fills a significant void that would otherwise be left. But yeah, story so far seems good. I think that there's probably going to be about sort of 60 to 80 hours of play in this game. It's going to be a pretty decent length one from what I've seen.
Decent.
Yeah. And there's a lot of side stuff you can do. So, gambling and, investing in different bits of attire and, of course, the karaoke and all sorts of different bits and pieces. So, for people who like the time-wasting side questy type stuff, this game will be perfect for them. So, yeah, but super looking forward to getting more into this. It's a lot of fun, and I think that the story is going to probably, go over my head a certain amount, because I think that people who are long-time fans of the Yakuza series will kind of recognise characters in this one that are being introduced early that maybe pop up in other later games. I know none of that, so that's going to be completely, a non-event for me. Yeah, exactly. But if I do actually pick up some of the other ones at a later date, then maybe I'll be able to draw those connections. So yeah, could be quite interesting. So far, I would recommend, and I'll be putting some more thoughts together in a video on our channel, so you can check that out at a later date. So there you go. Yeah, so that's a bunch of gaming. We've actually done a fair variety of things this week. So let's kick into some news, of which we don't have a whole lot of, but a couple of cool things. So, Imogen, last week you reminded me to talk about this, and we totally forgot. So do you want to talk a little bit for a minute about the Awesome Games Done Quick event that took place recently?
Yeah, so if you haven't heard about it, or Games Done Quick is what it's commonly referred to, but its full title is Awesome Games Done Quick, is a sort of streaming, I guess is the best way to put it, convention where lots of different people speed run various games. And they vary from the very serious guys who can do sort of a couple of levels of certain games blindfolded, which is nuts and insane to watch, and you're just wowed, and their twitch reflexes are off the charts. And then there's other ones where it's, being as tricksy as you can, like using what your, knowledge of the systems and those types of things, all the way from sort of the old Marios all the way through to some new things. I know Zelda's quite a popular one to watch sort of speed. But if you've never seen a speed run of a game, the Games Done Quick website will give you links to all of the different ways that you can watch replays and things of that. But they absolutely smashed their fundraising this year, and I didn't see what the final amount was. So I'm just loading it up now. But basically, the whole event is done to raise money for a charity in the US. They raised $2.2 million. Oh my gosh. Absolutely smashing the record, which was $1 million from last year. All of the money goes, I'm just trying to look up the name. Oh yes, the Prevent Cancer Foundation, which do a lot of work in various things associated with research in the United States. So for a really great cause, and sort of a lot of people sort of donate their time. They've opened it up a lot now so that you can apply to sort of stream as part of it and sort of get promoted through, so you can attend from anywhere in the world. It doesn't just have to be at the actual convention itself now, which is really cool. I'm just reading through now, and some of the other games I might have to look up. There was someone who did a speed run of Undertale. So, Luke, if you want some tips there, that would probably taking the true pacifist ending in 1 hour 28.
Okay.
Hey, Luke, there you go. That's an alright playtime for you.
Yeah, maybe.
You beat that, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, my favourite speedrun game of all time is Super Metroid. That one can be done in ludicrous speed, and it's quite a thing to watch people do that. It's amazing. But I have a new contender for the title as far as favourite goes, because I, this morning, in fact, actually looked at some videos from the event, and man, speedrunning Doom, that shit is legit. Game is built for that. Oh my god.
That would be insane. I'm reading here that obviously everything was probably streamed on Twitch, I suspect. Probably a big supporter of the event itself, but they do have the Games Done Quick YouTube channel, and they are uploading what they can when they can. So check it out. It is insane what some people and the time that goes into doing these things.
Oh, man.
I certainly would never consider myself a speedrunner. The only reason I would ever be a speedrunner of a game is just out of sheer, like, I don't want to, like, not interested, try and do it as quickly as possible, but I don't think I'd be very successful.
No, well, it's not just that. It's not just being really, really good at a game and being able to do it quickly. There's a huge speedrunning community that, a lot of them tend to hook up on Discord, from what I understand, and chat about some of the glitches and exploits that they can use to actually get ahead in games quickly. There was a couple that I saw today watching the Doom one, and which just blew me away. I was just like, surely the developers put this in like as a bit of a gag thing, or particularly for speedrunners, because it just seemed really bizarre. Like, Olly, in Doom at the end of the first big section, sort of just after you get the first key card, how there's like a massive blast door that won't open until you kill all the demonic presence in the room. Mm-hmm. So as it turns out, because I watched the guy do it, if you actually herd all of the possessed sort of staff towards you and then do like a backwards finishing move on one of them, you can actually glitch through the door and you don't actually have to finish that area. So there's
so many glitches like
stuff like
games.
that. Yeah. I saw him do it and I didn't know whether to be impressed or angry, because it was like, cheating bastard.
I think, what was it? I watched Fallout 3 get done in like 15 minutes or something stupid.
Wow.
Just by people glitching through things.
Just insane.
It's silly. And when I realized how silly that some of this stuff is, so I consider myself to be pretty decent at Mario Maker in particular. Like, I'll smash out some expert levels and feel pretty good about it. Likewise, Leanne and I, my partner, will bust it out and, we feel pretty confident. We watched some of the levels that they were doing and we're just like, what? No. And we're listening, it's like, this took me about 4 weeks solid playing to get this level. I'm like, what?
And you just know that's like, wake up, play it, like have a coffee, play it, eat something, play it.
4 weeks of one level.
It's not like I have a job and I also do this. Like, they spent solid
like,
4 weeks on it.
The hell?
If I had to do that, I would learn to speedrun the art of killing myself, because I would die from boredom just doing that repeatedly for one particular game. Oh my god.
Well, that was dark, dude.
Way to insult someone's hobby.
I'm talking about my perspective on how I would not enjoy that. They could enjoy that all they like.
But it's that, I think it has to be that competitive nature within people to do it. And I think that it's a real drive just to be the best. And I guess if you are close enough to be able to be challenging records on speedruns, then go for it. Sweet. And I love watching them. It just blows my mind. I can watch an entire game in 30 minutes. It would take me hours to complete. So
I'm glad that other people are really good at it so that I can watch them and not do it myself, basically.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, you don't want to put that time in.
Yeah.
Created a service industry for you.
Absolutely.
It's called Twitch.
Yeah.
Where you can watch other people play games that you can't.
Yep, absolutely. Well, speaking of a service industry, we could talk about the owner and maker of a pretty massive service by the name of Steam, which we all use. So Gabe Newell, as it turns out, actually did a Reddit Ask Me Anything today, which is a bit of a departure from his usual style, because he doesn't tend to do too many of these. But it's funny, actually. Like, a couple of posts were up announcing that he was going to be doing this, and it's like, Gabe's Reddit AMA, ask me anything except when Half-Life 3 is coming, because that's something I'm not going to answer. So,
that's explicitly against the AMA policy, surely.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it was kind of, ask me anything, but don't waste your time on things that I'm not going to give you an answer for. So
ask me anything. This is the answer that you're going to ask. Don't ask the question again.
Yeah. Look, I understand where he's coming from, because it was a case of, you've only got a certain amount of time. You want to ask questions that he doesn't already answer every single friggin' day. So, but it was interesting. Like, a couple of things that came out of it was whether Valve are going to be, continuing on with the Left 4 Dead franchise. So there's some possibility there. Talking about any plans for movies, because there was some talk about Half-Life and Portal movie that was in development, and apparently that is actually still a thing, so they're still looking at developing those.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yep. So that was interesting. It was sort of asked whether there's any chance of new intellectual property that takes place in either of those universes as well, and the answer to that was yes, so that could be anything. And Valve apparently is actually still working on fully fledged single player games as well. So that's promising. It won't necessarily be any of their known sort of favourites. It could be something entirely new, but they've got a pretty decent track record when they actually do get around to producing games. So, but one of the things that was mentioned in regards to Half-Life specifically, and I kind of agree with this position, was that Half-Life 3 is a game that if it should ever happen, it almost would collapse under the weight of expectations immediately. There's no way that people could ever be happy about what that would end up being. But doing something different in the Half-Life universe of a different style of game could possibly be an out for them if they actually wanted to go back to that well. So then that way the expectations shift considerably because it's not just doing the same thing. Yeah, I think that's a much better way to look at it. So we will see.
Very mature response.
We will see. Yeah, absolutely. When he's finished Scrooge McDucking through his money bin, I'm sure he'll give us more information about what's going on with those things.
Wow.
Yeah, man, you know it. Come on. If I was Gabe, I would be counting and laughing all the way to the bank. Anyway, so Titanfall 2, a quick update worth mentioning for that one. So this is a game that I'm actually very keen to take a look at after hearing some really good things about it late last year. And it's got its first big update coming, which is going to be a pilot-only update called Livefire. So apparently there's 3 new maps that are being introduced to the game, and they're going to be completely free, which is cool. So this basically Livefire itself is a pilot-only mode, which is going to be a 6-on-6 multiplayer game without any Titans. So it's going to be like a best of 5 rounds without any respawns. So teams will eliminate the other side or possess a flag, and there's a counter that they will have tracking their progress as well. So and there's a couple of new maps coming with really sort of tight enclosed spaces designed to promote intense, fast-paced games, and a new Colosseum map which is called Columns as well, apparently. So sounds pretty good. It sounds like a game that is going to continue getting a little bit of love because people who are fans of it tend to be quite dedicated from what I've seen. So there you go. Titanfall 2. Right, and that's pretty much the only non-Switch game news of the week. So we should probably talk about the Switch stuff.
Go on then. Go on. Get it out of your system.
So anyway, our topic for this week, as we mentioned last episode, is pretty much, there's going to be some Switch-heavy talk, but we're going to bundle this all into like a bit of a discussion of gaming hardware in 2017. So, where we're at with a few different things, where we're heading. Nintendo, obviously, is the flavour of the week. So that's a good one for us to kick off on. But there's a few other things that we need to talk about as well. So Nintendo had its big Switch reveal event late last week. A whole bunch of information was released, and we now have price, release date, specs, all that sort of stuff. So, guys, should we just really quickly run through some of the basics, and then we can have a bit of back and forth discussion on what we think of them. So,
go for it.
All right, so everything...
In case anybody's been off the internet for the past week.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that is relevant for our country in particular is the price. So the price was revealed as being US $299. And for Australia, that's going to mean $469, looks like the going rate across most of our big retailers. So,
just for the console.
Just for the console.
Including any game.
Yep. And there are 2 different console packs that they're doing, which basically are exactly the same components, but a color swap for the controllers. So you can have one or the other depending on whether you want plain grey or whether you want the red and the neon blue. So we've got the release date, which was March 3rd as well, which was perhaps surprising that it's actually coming up so soon. The bundles basically give you a console with 32 gig of memory on board. That is expandable using a micro SD card. Nintendo Switch is built to support 3 different gameplay modes, so you can play it traditionally on TV, like a normal game console can be, where basically the Switch itself, which is kind of the screen panel, actually sits in its dock, and then games are sort of played, looking at the TV. It can be played as a handheld, so like a gigantic 3DS almost, but without the 3D, I guess. Or it can be played as like what they're calling a tabletop mode, where basically you can, put the kickstand up on the console, rest it on a table, detach attach the controllers, and that's one of the ways that they're showing some of the multiplayer games taking place, where you sort of give the Joy-Con controller to a friend and they play with one and you play with the other one. So designed as a bit of a social machine in that regard.
Yeah, after you're having your roof party with your millennial friends.
Exactly.
In New York.
Exactly.
Because we all do that, right?
Yeah.
On the huge.
Yeah. A bunch of different launch titles, which I guess we can come back to. There's other new games being developed. A big part of the presentation actually was dedicated to not the games that are coming out at launch, but actually discussing things that are in development. And we'll talk about that in a second, but that's definitely one part of the presentation that I thought fell considerably flat in my eyes. But that was a weird one. The battery life was another big one that people wanted to know about. So you can hook it up to the TV, obviously, or you can play it on the go. But when the Switch is not plugged in, it was mentioned that we can expect between 2.5 to 6.5 hours of gameplay at the highest brightness setting. Now, that's going to depend on what games you're playing and what you're actually using the system for. I think that 2.5 hours is definitely on the concerning side, but if it can actually get up towards the 4 to 6, then that's probably a bit more of a comfort thing. The console does actually have a USB connected though, so in theory you'll be able to actually carry around a portable charger if you happen to have one of those, and that might actually sort that thing out for you. USB-C, I think it is, so you can keep that full battery away when you're not using your TV. There is a multi-touch touchscreen, so that was confirmed. It can do a lot more than the Wii U and the 3DS touchscreens as well. It's multi-capacitive, so what that means basically is most modern smartphones have that too, where you've got like the multiple different levels of pressure that you can put on the touchscreen, and it allows different functionality depending on how hard you're pushing down. Games actually do run at a lower resolution rate when the machine is undocked. So typically when the machine is docked, games are going to be running at about 1080p. But when you're in handheld or tabletop mode, it's capable of outputting games at around 720p. So a bit of a downgrade, but depending on the games that you're playing, a lot of the Nintendo titles have that sort of art style where that's not really a huge concern anyway. So... Yeah, and Nintendo are for the first time launching a full online service. So similar to what Microsoft does with Xbox Live and Sony's PlayStation service as well. So first time Nintendo's really done that. It will be a paid service. It's going to be free for a little while, but
has one very definitive difference.
Oh,
however.
yes, it does. So, let's get to that in order. So, let's talk about the console itself before we get to the extra features and things. What did you guys think about the actual hardware and the specs and that sort of stuff, and the release date and the price and all the core components that were released during that reveal?
I wasn't wowed.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing. I mean, in that, I guess I was already wowed by the initial sort of buzz and marketing. So there wasn't really a lot about the specs that I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
In that, I wasn't really banking on it having a great battery life unplugged. So I guess that sounds more positive, but they tend to be a little bit optimistic on the optimistic side when they're talking about battery power for things. We've all owned iPhones for years now where they tell us the battery life is X, and we all know that is never wholly the case.
Android,
but I guess, yeah. Well, some of those started exploding as well, so...
True.
We can't all sit along our high horse and not get burnt.
I can. Great horse.
Yeah.
Amazing horse.
Yeah, so there wasn't really anything about the actual unit itself that surprised me terribly. There wasn't a new thing. I mean, the revealing kind of colours for the Joy-Cons, I was really hoping there would be more. That was kind of one thing I was like, like the red and the blue. I'm not going to call it neon blue because it's blue. Was kind of cool. And it's a sort of a point of difference and kind of fun with some of the games that we'll discuss. But yeah, I was kind of hoping it would be a couple more options, or like all blue or all red for those of us like myself who like things to be even.
So important note, if you actually do want to get the even sort of double red, double blue, you can do that by buying the additional Joy-Con controller pack. Because the pack that they are doing, which has one of each as well, they've actually done the clever thing and they've packaged it with the opposite one of each.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It's just more and more money. I guess for me, the biggest shock was the price. We had this discussion when the initial thing came out, is that the price would be one of the biggest things for it. And if you're talking about $469 Australian, which is Australia tax. Woo!
Yay.
Because if you translate, so US dollars straight to Australian dollars would be around the 400 mark. So we're paying, around $70 to $80 more just for being in Australia. They're not region locked, so I guess you could go to the trouble of ordering it in the US. I suppose.
I don't pay that much for shipping anyway, if not more.
Exactly
It's
right.
A giant box.
Depending, of course, of what your network is, you might find someone who can ship it to you or order it with other things, or I don't know. People might find a way around that. But to look at, it's not just the unit. I mean, $469 at this stage for sort of the low 500s, I can get a PS4 Pro at the moment with a game. So if I'm looking at $80 on top of the $470. So if I'm looking at $550 and above for just the Switch and a game, that is intense. And that puts it in a different category to previous Nintendo releases. Whether that's, I guess, their intention or the price is just sort of...
Can you pick up that PS4 and have a cool roof party with your millennial friends?
I can. I sure can. I just need an extension cord. But it's totally doable. You're going to have cool fairy lights, then you're going to have an extension cord anyway, right? So,
True.
Yeah. So for me, if anything, the release of the hardware was just the price was a lot. As soon as they said US $299, I'm like, that's not so bad in US, like converting, but I knew that they would slap some sort of Australian tax on that. I feel more sorry for our friends over in New Zealand who are already paying over $500, even though their dollar is at parity with the Australian dollar. So they get taxed even more. And that's, again, just the console. To pay over $500 just for the console is a lot of money. A lot of money. So we'll see.
What was your reaction like, Ollie?
Meh. that was literally my reaction. I'm like, cool, it's a new Nintendo console. That's neat. Hooray. It's like the old one, but now you can pick it up and walk it around more. Cool.
It's got tiny controllers to lose.
Yay. I like where they're going with it. I like that they've basically gone, people like the DS, people like the Wii U, why not put a DS and a Wii U together? Hey, we've got an all-in-one. And I guess if you think about it like that, if you go, it's a DS and essentially a Wii U, but next-gen Wii U, then I guess it makes the price a little bit more palatable because you don't then have to buy two separate things if you wanted to have that. So that's a viewpoint. Not a good viewpoint, but it's a viewpoint as far as the hardware is concerned. But yeah, I very rarely get excited about platforms. I more get excited about games in that regards.
I think that is entirely fair, and I think that's probably one of the sticking points with the reveal as well. So,
correct.
Yeah.
You go on.
Well, my take on the sort of core details was that price-wise, I think the price is the one thing that they absolutely fucking nailed. I think that they actually got that spot on, and the reason why is because there was a lot of rumors sort of, and a lot of the rumor mill when you're looking at these sorts of things sort of online, a lot of them talk about it in US dollar terms because that's kind of the baseline that a lot of the stuff, gets translated from. And at the end of the day, we're always going to get stung in Australia. It's just one of the things that we have to deal with out here. And depending on the nature of the economy and, whatever time of year and political state and climate and that sort of thing, it's always going to change depending on that. But if we're looking at it in US terms, it basically is releasing for around up to $50 more than some people thought it was going to be. But $300 is probably the higher end of what was in the okay range. The reason why I think that $300 is actually a really, really good price for them to launch at is because it actually gives them room to move. If they had to release it at $250, and then if they had to run into trouble with the launch, reducing price will really, really hurt them, and it actually starts to look quite bad for them as a company, having something that is down costed that far in order to actually, get market traction. But it coming out at $300 actually gives them a little bit of that buffer so that, as time goes on, they can actually reduce it slightly. They can actually, keep up with some of the things that the other console makers are going to be doing. It just doesn't lock them into a corner.
I would argue that regardless of the start price, reducing it at any rate would have that same impact. I see what you're saying. Like $250 down to like $200 US is starting to say something, I guess, about how they value it. And I guess what they've done with putting it at a higher price point is make a very strong statement about how they believe this challenges the other consoles. And it is a very strong statement, and it's put a lot of people off. So I would argue that any room to move, if it goes down, indicates a lack of judgment, I guess, in terms of what their market was wanting. Setting their price point high is confirming their sort of, this is a luxury, this battles PS4 Pro, this battles against Xbox One. And that's a very big and strong statement by Nintendo. And you know what? If they back it up, awesome. People who are diehard Nintendo fans are going to buy this regardless. So maybe that's where the price is.
Yeah.
The appetite is high for Nintendo at the moment. Everyone kind of ignores the Wii U release and just sees like the last release was the Wii, and that was ages ago. Yeah. So maybe it's that. But just the prices, I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's still within the okay margin. I get what you're saying. It's on the high end of okay, but it's still okay.
But it's the fact that when it comes out and I'm looking at $470, if it was $470 and a game, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
It's $470 with no games. Not even like it has this like you can do this without buying any game. So $470 you can try and experience it. No, you don't. Yep. You get nothing. You get the console and you get to turn it on and look at the Nintendo launch screen. And that's where it's a bit much. So I guess
devil's advocating slightly here.
Yeah.
How much was the PS4 when it came out?
Around the same.
I think it was slightly more, but
I'll look it up.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't quite that low. I'm recalling Australian. I think it was around the 500 or so mark at least.
So then, why is it okay for the PS? Yeah, 549. So why was it okay for the PS4 to be 549, but not this one?
Because the PS4 also acts as a Blu-ray player and a 4K streamer and everything else. It's not just a game playing machine.
Blu-ray is dead, right? It's a dead form.
I do realize. Okay, all right, whatever, Ollie. When it came out, when the PS4 was released, its capabilities were not just as a console. It was like a media center, and you also have apps on there where you can stream your Foxtel and your everything else. That's not something that Nintendo's proposing here. So
and what about the Xbox One in that regards then?
About the same price. I think it was about 500 Australian when it initially came out.
But that wasn't a Blu-ray player or anything either.
No, but it still has that home media center, and as well as when the Xbox One came out, it had the connection with Windows 10 proposed.
Now, the question here, does this not do any home media stuff, or is it just games?
Not as far as I saw in the presentation.
If it has the capability to do that, which I doubt, it certainly hasn't been advertised. So,
so it is just a console, whereas the other two, you can use them to manage your media in your home. Like it can be connected to multiple devices. You can use it to stream from various things.
And again, devil's advocate here.
Yep.
That's what every smart TV can now do anyway. So why would they then double up on that feature?
I guess, and that's fair. It's just, but their launch price is, I think, because when you're talking about those deals, the PS4 deals, when they released, that was with game.
Yep. The other thing for that is that was
so it's already
4 years ago.
It's 550 with the game.
Yeah. But that's 4 years ago, and inflation's a thing as well.
Yeah, I don't think you can really compare it
it doesn't impact
to what PlayStation and Xbox did back then. I mean, it was different circumstances, different times. Things were valued differently, and you've got to remember as well that the market condition at the time was that Sony and Xbox were launching virtually at the same time, competing with each other, whereas Nintendo is dealing with competitors that are in mid-cycle of their console cycle, and they have a huge library of games available, which basically strengthens their market proposition when it comes to competing with them. I mean, Nintendo's systems, and this is why probably the prime reason why the Wii U was such an abject failure, they live or die on their game offerings. And if you don't have enough games and if you don't have enough deals with third-party developers, then you just don't have enough stuff to offer people who want to buy your console. So coming into the market, when Xbox and PlayStation have that library already, and Xbox especially is, building on their backwards compatibility library, like it's going out of business. There's a huge...
Because it might be.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a huge amount to compete with there. Nintendo have always had their sort of, very, very much loved first-party sort of Nintendo games. They'll continue to have their Zeldas and their Marios and all that sort of thing, and God help us, I hope one day we'll have another Metroid. But... I mean, it's just not enough. Like, they don't have enough games with the Wii U, and I think that's the biggest risk when it comes to the Switch as well. So,
and the biggest risk of all when you're going to talk about marketing is, let's say you're walking into a physical store or you hit EB Games, our sort of local games retailer, their splash page. You're looking at three main options, arguably being the Xbox One, PlayStation 4 or Pro, or both, as well as their VR. And then you've got the Switch. And when you walk into that store and EB Games have got the PS4 Pro, which has arguably quite massive hitting power in terms of its ability to to show you beautiful games on your beautiful smart television in 4K, nonetheless. Of course, like games are still being buffed up. And that's at the 420 mark with games at the moment. And you're going to step up and spend $550 on the Nintendo Switch. That, you know, it's about how it's perceived, and it has to rely a lot, I think, at the moment on Nintendo fandom. I guess a lot of that is nostalgia. So
well, the identity.
We'll see, but they're good points though, Ollie.
Oh, I'm devil's advocate. I don't give a shit about the Switch. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like a Nintendo fanboy or anything. But what I was going to ask then, we did say it was on the strength of games. So what are the launch lineup? What does that look like?
All right. So we did mention that there was no bundled game. So that was probably a big negative. There is a game that they're releasing which would be perfect as a bundled game, in my opinion, which is very much along the lines of Wii Sports when the Wii first came out. You know, Wii Sports was a huge game, you know, much loved, really showcased the capabilities of the system and the motion controllers really, really well. They've got a game coming out called 1-2 Switch, which is about as creative as you could possibly imagine as a name.
Big switch.
Yeah, exactly. But
I can't believe it's not Western Press.
No, exactly. Yep. They should have bundled it. I mean, it's actually not available at launch either.
No,
Yeah.
I was absolutely astounded because that came out and it looked very much so like you launch your Nintendo for the first time and it's preloaded on there, and it's so that you and whomever you have playing with you, because it's a social platform console, you can just have a go.
It is available on launch, Luke.
Are you sure?
I was going to say it is available on launch.
I'm reading the article right now.
It was 1-2 Switch, ARMS, and Zelda were the sort of bigger guys. Anyway.
No, it's ARMS.
It astounds me that that's not included.
Yep.
Oh, it's not ARMS.
No,
I was going to say ARMS was the other big one.
No.
Oh.
No.
Wow,
it's
they
coming,
really messed this up.
Coming not long afterwards, but it's not on launch day, I believe.
Yeah, spring 2017.
Yep.
But, you know, whenever they say spring something or like Q2.
Not Southern Hemisphere
great.
spring.
Yeah,
Southern Hemisphere spring. Just clarify that.
It might be.
Yeah, it's true, actually.
Yeah. But yeah, that for me, overall, like we can talk about the games in more detail, but overall, I went from I think I want this to that's a little bit steep, but I guess, you know, it's, you know, expected. It's a new console. Maybe I'll pick it up a couple of months after release.
Always a good plan.
To not actually that interested until Mario comes out. Not. ARMS was the only other game that came out that I thought looked kind of cool and would be fun to play with folk, and I see that being a really big title for them. But I thought that was on launch, and it's not. So another big shock. But yeah, 1-2 Switch looks fun, and it is. I don't understand why it's not on the console, why it's not included. Maybe they'll change their minds. I don't know.
So for people,
maybe retailers will bundle it.
1-2 Switch is kind of like a mini game compilation which showcases a lot of the functionality of the new Joy-Con controllers. So, like there's a gunfighting kind of game. There's ones that involve speaking into the controller by the look of it, shaking them around, using them as sporting implements. There's a whole bunch of different things. So, yeah, I imagine it's kind of like the Wii Sports equivalent, essentially.
And the gunfighter one looked really cool. It's really intuitive. They were talking about how you don't have to press buttons or whatever. It's just sort of how you hold yourself, and there's a countdown on screen, and it looks really good. And it reminded me, it's funny you say that, it reminded me of Wii Sports when Wii originally came out.
Wii Sports was awesome. It was so good.
It was so good. And still to this day, I would argue that Wii Sports is probably the biggest Wii game that I've ever played.
But you know why you played it? Because it was bundled with the fucking machine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody
just
got
on
it.
the bundled thing. You know, none of the other consoles have bundled games with it, right? That's always down to the retailer, not the distributor.
No,
I'm
we
aware.
understand
I'm aware.
that. It's
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just
You seem to be going on that very strongly.
Nintendo have a way of doing it where it's actually, part of the bundle no matter where you get it, typically, sort of thing. It's like it's like their trademark. Like you talking about it in Wii terms, you buy a Wii, you will pretty much always get Wii Sports. That was just the way it was done. So, yeah.
It's kind of like, for lack of a better description, Wii Sports initially was thought to be quite a small, and it was quite a small game initially, that was just sort of in the box. And it was, like Luke said, a way of demonstrating the capabilities of the machine. But so I don't know. That 1-2 Switch looks great. I would have been shocked if it hadn't been on release. That would have been a lot of missed opportunity. And what else would you play on it then?
Well, what else is available?
Yeah, lots of things. Luke, did you want to go down the list?
Yes. Well, before we go down the list of games, there are some prices out for the accessories as well, which are frightening is probably the word that I would use. So,
Optimistic?
Yeah. So, I mean,
There we go. It's priced optimistically.
Pricing for the console itself aside, you can also get the Nintendo Switch Pro controller, which is basically, the same sort of thing that the Wii U had, and, similar to what you see with other consoles. Certainly not the same as the Xbox Pro Elite controller, because that's a work of art. But this thing is retailing at $70 US. That is what I would call optimistic.
Ouch.
Extra boxes of the Joy-Con controllers will set you back $80 US. Individual left and right, you can buy just one of for $49.99 US, so $50. You can actually get a new charging grip, like the grip to put your Joy-Con controllers in. You actually do get one bundled with the system, but this one actually has a charging function in it because the one bundled with the system does not. So if you're going to be playing, with that grip with your Joy-Con sort of clicked into it, then it won't, give them power while you're playing. This one actually will. No, I don't actually think that's a huge issue because I think typically when you finish playing, you're going to disconnect them and put them back on your Switch and they'll charge that way. But I don't know, it could be a little bit annoying. You can actually buy a spare dock as well, like if you want to have the machine docked in multiple rooms of your house, which does seem like a cool thing you would do with a console of this nature. That'll set you back about $90. So, yeah, pretty pricey for something that's basically just like a power supply charger.
So in Australian dollars,
lot.
EB Games is advertising the Nintendo Switch Joy-Cons for $120.
Yep.
Wow.
So if you want to buy your console with your blue-red and you want your sort of blue-red matching, so you have 4, I guess, Joy-Cons, an extra $120 on top of your $470, and you still don't have a game.
Mm-hmm.
And I am looking at 1-2 Switch. You can pre-order that from EB Games for $70 Australian.
Can't devil's advocate that at all.
This
I looked
point
up
in
Xbox
time,
prices and I can't do it.
Exactly. So you're looking at 1-2. Let's just say let's get the game. Let's see what it's all about. So you have $470 for the console. You want to play it with friends, so you stump up another $120, which is what, $590 at that stage for that and the extra consoles. You still don't have a game. And then on top of that, you buy 1-2 Switch, which is the launch title, inverted commas, looking at $660. I don't think there is a PS4 Pro bundle out there with games and whatever else that is $600 over.
No.
Unless it was like a collector's edition Uber thing,
This is just the console, some
now.
extra controllers so 4 people can play, and a game. And of course, like game prices and things will fall very quickly from retailers. And you made a good point, Olly. It's not really up to companies. I guess the consoles now don't bundle things. It's up to EB Games and whomever else distributes them. But that is a lot of money for one game and a console. I guess you could leave out but you're still looking at $550. Like that's a big ask.
Well, a PS4 Pro from that same place is $560.
Yeah.
Nothing else, and one controller. So not too
Fair
unreasonable.
enough. Not too unreasonable, no.
But the PS4 Pro is probably, I haven't looked at the specs of the
So many more
device.
teraflops. So many teraflops.
Oh, I love my floppy terrors. They're great.
All
But
of the teraflops.
I would need to directly compare the hardware before I can make a fair decision.
Yeah.
Games is probably the thing that we should focus on. So in terms of the actual release list that are going to be out on the day of console launch, the list that I've got is 12. I'm pretty sure this is the most up-to-date, accurate one that we have. So of these 12 games that are going to be available on console launch, have a guess how many of them are actually new titles.
Wait, does that mean like sequels, or do you mean like actual new, they've made a new game title?
Actual new, they've made a new game titles. Now, the reason I say that
3
is because, well, you're close, it's 5. The reason I say that is because there's a lot of these games that actually came to many consoles in years gone by. So the full list is 1-2 Switch is new. That'll be coming out. We've got Disgaea 5, which actually came to PlayStation 4 a couple of years ago. There's Has Been Heroes, which is a new one. I don't know much about that. You've got Snipper Clips, which is a new one. Been hearing some good buzz around that. It's like a puzzler
Sounds
sort of
adorable.
game. Yeah. Super Bomberman R. Bomberman's always good. That's a new game.
Bomberman.
That one actually does look fucking cool. Legend of
Bomberman.
Zelda Breath of the Wild. Now, that was shown at the very, very end of the presentation, and they really held off on showing the date until the very, very last moment. And I felt that everybody watching that was about to riot if it was anything other than the 3rd of March. But
if they hadn't had released that with launch, if it was no Mario and no Zelda on launch,
the
internet would have burned.
That would have been bad, yeah. Fortunately,
been
not
very
the
bad.
case. So, yeah, Zelda will be coming out on launch. Incidentally, Breath of the Wild will use about 40% of the internal storage on the machine if you choose to do that.
This is what I'm talking about. For that price point, this is insane.
It's crazy.
Anyway.
But, yeah. Yeah, so we didn't even mention that the console, the games are cartridge based, so no more discs. They're all going to be little sort of cartridges. You can get storage expansions for the onboard storage in the form of micro SD cards. I'm a little concerned about that because the speed at which machines typically read micro SDs is not particularly fast.
Oh, there's been a lot of progress in that kind of area, though.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years.
We'll see. I mean, that actually could impede performance a little bit, but I don't know. Time will tell. So games that actually are coming out on launch that aren't new. We've got I Am Setsuna, which came out last year. We had Just Dance 2017, which actually ironically came to a lot of consoles last year in 2016. We've got Pyo Pyo Tetris, which is 2014. Skylanders Imaginators, which came out last year. Rayman Legends, which, let's get in the time machine and go back to 2013 because that's when that came out. Yeah, looking ahead to a bunch of the other games they've talked about in months to come, Skyrim's a really, really good example. We kind of had a hint that Skyrim was coming to the Switch, which was kind of cool. And I was actually thinking about holding off purchasing the new reimagined Skyrim, the remastered
How do we
edition.
feel about that now?
Not going to be doing that. I'm going to be buying this thing on PC because it turns out that Skyrim coming to Switch is not the remastered one. It's just the regular old.
It's regular old.
It's the
because the
vanilla-ass
processor in
Skyrim.
the machine cannot run the remastered one. This is just nuts. I am just so
Wait, is that actually the reason?
I don't know.
you can only imagine either that or
No, do we know
timing
that for a fact?
No,
or are
we
you
don't know that
spitballing?
for a fact.
Okay.
But why would they not? Why would you not have the remastered version that looks beautiful and wonderful and
Because
fabulous?
potentially it's cheaper. And
Maybe.
the other reason is potentially, bear with me here,
Yep.
whilst the main console potentially could run it, the handheld one potentially could not, and they want to have the version that can run on
True.
both.
Yeah, that's probably a good point, actually. Maybe it's
Because the thing you have to remember, a lot of these
compromise, yeah.
games, they say, you can play on the TV or handheld. Well, then they need to make a compromise somewhere because the handheld one will have no, could you fit a PS4 into a little
fair.
thing?
No,
you can't.
No, that's fair. But why the crap would you not play the remastered Skyrim? It would be that's fair. I understand why they would make all those choices if that's why they have. But Skyrim, part of the games, just like Last Guardian, is their beauty and the way that they look on screen. And you've got, assumably, a fancy television that you're playing all your stuff on.
Skyrim needs a lot of mods to look pretty. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, the remastered one looks very good.
No,
Yeah, it does. That's a personal opinion. Ollie.
Ollie's coming.
that's an objective opinion.
Ollie's coming from Witcher 3 territory, which I can kind of understand. So,
Yeah, Witcher 3. Turn the hair physics off and, man, you're golden.
yeah. So anyway, other games that we can look forward to in the future after launch, we've got Arms, which Imogen's mentioned a couple of times already, which is basically a punch-up style brawler where you are a dude or a dudette with springs for arms with boxing gloves on the end, or various other punchy devices. That game looks super cool. Looks like it makes really good use of the motion sort of controls and the new features of the Joy-Cons. So looking forward to trying that out. Fire Emblem Warriors, which is another Fire Emblem game. I've heard that it's not as much to be excited about as typical Fire Emblem, but I'll take that from people who know it better than I do. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Mario Kart, yeah, she's going to love that. Mario Kart 8, basically like a version of that, which has a few add-ons that aren't available in the typical Mario Kart. It's Mario Kart. It's an awesome game. Again, not a new game.
It's not on launch, though, is it?
No, it's not. I don't think it's far off, but it's not on launch day.
They didn't give a date, though. Anyway.
Not sure. All right, so the bunch of others. I won't go through every single one. The big ones, Splatoon 2, that was another fairly big one that sort of got a bit of screen time during the presentation. Looks super cool. Splatoon, again, a really, really good IP for Nintendo these days. It's one of the first, new IPs they've had in quite a while that's actually had huge amount of success. Splatoon 2 does look like, more of the same, but it's kind of, more of
That's Nintendo.
a good thing. So, yeah. Which is fine. Game's done very well for them. And the new Mario, so Super Mario Odyssey. Now, I think it's probably worth talking about this one for just a minute or two because it's super interesting in terms of Mario games because Mario is, for the first time, coming to the real world. What do you guys think about Mario running around with actual sort of normal people that aren't sort of short, squat cartoon plumbers walking around the streets in a New York-esque style setting?
I kind of like it. From what I saw, it looked really cool.
It reminded me a lot of that Simpsons episode where Homer goes to the real world, like the VR episode. Yeah, super weird. Yeah, I mean,
it looks really good. There's just one massive problem with it.
It's not on launch.
Yes. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh my god.
As soon as they said that, it's like it won't be available on launch, but very shortly afterwards, later in 2017. I'm like, God damn it, Nintendo!
Like, how hard is it to line it up? Really?
Yeah, I know.
And that's it's just the whole thing. I don't know. I've lots of conspiracy theories behind this, but we talked about this before. We talked about this last week before the announcement even happened. That Nintendo console without a Mario on release, not even a Mario Kart, is not brilliant. Zelda will carry it a long way.
But the thing with Zelda,
I think they're banking on the Zelda.
The thing with Zelda, though,
Very
is
much
that
so.
Zelda as a title is not a console seller. Like, there's a huge fan base that loves those games, but it's not as big as you would think. So Mario, absolutely. Zelda is a little bit more niche. And the thing is that Breath of the Wild is going to be available on the Wii U as well. So anyone who still has a Wii U that's humming and hurrying about whether to make the Switch...
Well, that's good. Yeah.
They can still stick with their Wii U and play that game. So it's not a deal breaker for them, which is a problem. Yeah.
Overall, I am very Olly, very neutral about the whole thing now. I went from, I need one of these immediately in my house, to I'm actually not that bothered. I will wait till Christmas this year maybe to pick it up, unless something dramatic happens. So in the lottery, I guess. But yeah, it's not. I'm neutral. Very Olly. I'm sitting in a firm Olly position on the
Welcome
Switch
to Switzerland.
You're hardly Switzerland.
Or do you mean Switzerland?
Hardly. Yeah. Switzerland doesn't play devil's advocate, Ollie. Keeps out of things.
No, that's true.
That's not you
It's
at
true.
all.
So I'm kind of sitting on a line where I still want to Switch, but buying it on release is probably the big question. So
Fuck no.
Question though, is this driven by the fact that you have two small, very excited gamers at home? So the Switch holds a different prospect for you as well.
no, fuck them, it's for me. No.
That
Okay.
brutal honesty.
Wow. Wow.
No, I mean, seriously, the kids are going to continue to get mileage out of their Wii U for quite some time to come. There's no reason for me to upgrade.
Are you going to hide the Switch from them?
No, I can't do that because Ben's far too good at educating himself about the games industry these days. He doesn't even need me for that. So he knows all about it, but I don't think he,
Has he asked you if you're getting one?
he hasn't, but I think he just assumes that I am because that's what I do. So
That's what Dad does.
yeah.
A thing.
Don't get me wrong. The second that there's a Pokemon game on this thing, he'll want it like a shot. So
Yeah.
But I mean, I could see like 1-2 Switch and ARMS and those sorts of fun sort of millennial rooftop party games. I think could be really great for kids, which are basically millennials anyway. So there's not a huge divide there. But
I hope your sons aren't attending rooftop parties at their current age.
I hope not, unless it's our roof, and even then that raises serious questions about my parenting.
True.
No.
Very true.
I am keen for one perhaps later in the year. Like I'll be keen to play Zelda. Like I definitely want to play Zelda on launch, but I can play that on Wii U, so that doesn't bother me so much. Mario, I will definitely be keen for when it releases. I don't need to rush out and get this in preparation for that because that's a later in the year thing. Mario will be coming out sort of during that peak season though, where a lot of the other big developers, their main Christmas titles start launching too.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. I mean, that's what we can tend to expect. Now, the biggest thing I think that has been a disservice for Nintendo, and this is something that seemed on the surface to be really, really good. It's like is the release date. They announced March 3rd, and it's like, oh, wow, that's coming out much sooner than we expected. But that doesn't mean dick if they don't have games to go with the console. I think that they would have been much better off holding off on that release date and actually having some more stuff to launch with it. Instead, what's happening is they're going to be launching at the beginning of March, and look at what else is coming in March for us already. We've got Horizon Zero Dawn. We've got, what other big titles? We've been talking about them recently.
You expect me to remember
Horizon Zero
things.
Dawn has just got my
Mass
focus
Effect.
100%.
Mass Effect is coming out at the end of March
gosh.
as well.
Shit.
Yep.
Oh,
So
man.
are people going to want to sink a whole
You
bunch
guys are going
of...
to have fun trying to play Horizon Zero Dawn and Mass Effect together. Good luck.
Mass Effect first
they're,
for me.
they're nearly a month apart, so we'll be fine. Yeah. And there's at least one other major title that I'm totally forgetting about. So, yeah, there's some big stuff coming which are going to have people's attention. So competing with that for the spotlight.
Maybe they've done it on purpose. Maybe Zelda, they want to release it without a Mario. They don't want to pit two of their biggest titles against one another. Is that possibility? I know you probably don't have the stats in front of you.
Maybe?
But have they released a Zelda and a new Mario game at the same time? Ever?
Don't know.
I want to say
Seems
no
unlikely.
because it would be shooting themselves in one of their foot.
I think for the
Correct.
I think they did
Like
for the
Nintendo-
Wii. I think they did for the Wii.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, because we'll have to look into it. Because I think, that's my conspiracy theory of the
that
week.
makes sense.
Is that they hold the biggest thing Nintendo has is they have a lot of properties that are very popular that are only playable on Nintendo consoles. So if they had a Zelda and a Mario game, it seems like they don't want to pit the games against each other, but they were probably a bit torn about making sure that their console sold. So maybe by releasing them at separate times, they ensure a longevity of the higher price.
Yeah. Who knows?
We'll see.
Could be.
We don't know. That's just me theorizing.
Yeah.
Allegedly, etc.
Nintendo, you want to get me to buy your Switch? Launch a new Metroid game, and I'll throw money at you.
Not gonna
That
happen.
is guaranteed. I will do that thing.
Guaranteed.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's a lot of Switch talk. We should probably talk about some of the other hardware stuff that's coming out this year or that are focused on this year. So, Xbox One. Let's just talk briefly about Xbox. So, it's not been a massive year for Xbox sort of last year. They've been holding back on a few things. I mean, PlayStation, by comparison, has probably had a much bigger year with some of their big exclusives and, of course, PlayStation VR and the PS Pro. But I think Xbox have maybe actually done a good thing in holding back on a few things, and now they're poised to strike and have, possibly a much bigger year than they have done in recent history. So, and of course, towards the end of the year, we're going to be finally seeing the outcome of whatever Project Scorpio is. So
Very excited for Project Scorpio.
should be interesting. So we don't know a whole bunch about Project Scorpio just yet. We do know that it's going to be a big increase in power in terms of the Xbox capabilities. They have built this thing from scratch. Apparently, it will support a much sort of higher caliber of game moving forward. But they're going to have to do that juggling act where they.
How many teraflops, Luke?
I think it's around 8.
How many teraflops?
So many
6
flops.
teraflops.
They're flopping out all over the place. That's what's going on. So
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and the one thing that caught my attention with Scorpio is them saying this isn't going to replace the One because, blah, blah, blah. So it sounds very similar to what PlayStation and Sony did for the PS Pro. So it's not a new generation, it's a 0.5 of a generation. Like it's not going to replace your Xbox One. Either that or everything that will be made for the new title will be backwards compatible, or you can play your Xbox One games on it or something. But it sounds very much so like it's an addition. So it's if you're chasing the fastest, the prettiest, the 4K, that sort of stuff, then Scorpio is going to be it. Hopefully it doesn't just come out to be the Xbox One Pro.
Yeah.
Because the naming of the PS4 Pro, even though we're kind of used to it now, was a little bit jarring over Morpheus, which sounded super cool.
There's been very few of these sort of project names that have actually gone ahead and kept the name. Like,
Oh, it's not going to keep Scorpio. The reason it has a project name is that they don't call it what it actually is.
I actually wouldn't mind if they did. I think it'd be kind of cool if they just kept it as the Xbox Scorpio.
But the whole point is it's a code name, so you can't go data mining for real names of things.
Oh,
and
I
everything
know.
else.
But, it would be awesome if they, for once, just turned around and did like a switcheroo and said, hey, it actually is the Scorpio.
That would be kind of neat.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. That's a cool name for it. And
It's unique.
as an addition to an Xbox One, or maybe, like you said, maybe they're trying to attract across the PS4 players who haven't gone PS4 Pro.
Yeah.
And say, look, you're still getting a lot of value out of your PS4. Maybe you invest in the new Xbox One. If it's just new Xbox One, I'm going to shoot myself in the face and yell at Microsoft that it's not Nintendo and it needs to stop.
Look, I fully expect the consoles in the new pattern that they've gotten into with these incremental sort of updates as opposed to like a whole new generation. It's only a matter of time before they do the Apple thing and, just disband with the naming altogether and just call it the Xbox or, whatever.
I love Xbone. Xbone was the best
naming of a device ever.
It's the
Because
Xbox 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or something. Yeah. It's the Xbox Zero. Or just Xbox.
Yep. Well,
I don't know. We'll see. But that will be E3. We'll probably get more details and more fun, probably more before that. But I suspect E3 will be a big year for Microsoft this year.
yep. I think so.
Well, hopefully.
Yep.
Hopefully.
Could be. So, yeah, they've got it's basically, PlayStation's lead to lose at the moment. They've certainly got a lead in terms of the market and the number of machines out there in people's hands. But Microsoft have set themselves up pretty well this year. And I think that the fact that PlayStation fired first with the Pro means that Microsoft can learn from their mistakes and, get their messaging and their brand a bit better position to succeed. Because I don't think the Pro's done massively well. I mean, there's been a lot of bad news stories about games actually not running better on it, or even worse in a couple of notable cases. And it certainly hasn't brought the incremental increase that a lot of people were hoping for, except for perhaps if you're a VR enthusiast. So, yeah, it's an interesting situation. I think, PlayStation's still got a lot of really, really cool exclusives going for them. I mean, Horizon Zero Dawn being a good example. But Microsoft's
Last of Us 2.
Oh, yeah, Last of Us Part 2. People will just go apeshit when that finally gets a date attached to it. But Microsoft have got a pretty awesome library of backwards compatible games now, which are starting to draw a lot of attention. So I think they're upwards of hundreds and hundreds now. I'd have to check the exact number, but there's a lot of good titles there now too. So
There's also a system where you can sort of, almost vote and sort of put up titles that you can be seeking to sort of have backwards compatibility. We didn't mention, there is one thing that I really importantly need to point out, which is another difference between the Switch and the other ones. We didn't go back to the monthly game download. And there is a very important difference between a Nintendo system and the way that the Xbox and the PlayStation Network system works.
Yes.
And that is, you will still, if you subscribe on a monthly basis to PlayStation or to Xbox, then you get access to a couple of games or a game a month that you get to play for free. And you maintain that title if you get it during that month, if you're subscribed during that month.
You get it for free. You don't just get to play it for free. You own it. Yep.
You get it. You own it for free. So you are, I guess, missing out if you have one of those subscriptions and you don't download everything that you might eventually be interested in, because for that month you can get it for free and then it goes away. The difference with the Nintendo Switch is you will pay a monthly subscription and you will get access to play a game a month for free. But after that month, it then goes away.
It's basically a rental.
Correct.
Yep. What a load of crap.
And the pricing per month is not dissimilar to PlayStation and Xbox. So Nintendo are thinking an awful lot of their product at the moment. And if it's amazing, they've nailed it. But if it's not, I don't know. I don't understand how they've marketed.
What is happening?
Maybe they'll change it. Who knows? But that monthly game download and only being able to keep it for that month. I mean, if you only realize, or you get your Switch halfway through a month or whatever, and you subscribe, you only get a limited time to play it, or you only realize a game's available. Best thing about the PlayStation, you can just log on with your subscription at the end of the month and go, okay, download done. I'll play that when I can.
Yeah.
Not sort of forced into playing it per month. Interesting decisions all round Nintendo.
I would agree. All right, well, let's flick on over to the PC Master Race. The PC gamers like us, where do we think we're sort of sitting at the moment in terms of what's going on in 2017? I mean, we've had a couple of recent years with high-profile failures in terms of PC ports and a lot of games that have been running decently on console but been absolute crash and burn wrecks on PC. I don't know about you guys. I tended to sort of think that we had less of those horror stories last year than we did the year before. There were still a few of them going around, but we certainly didn't have like a Batman Arkham Knight situation again.
No.
Things have improved a little bit. It still happens, and it shouldn't, which is part of the problem. But you've always got so many different configurations of hardware and system, software and other bits and pieces to play with, where it's not that perfect sort of test bed on a console where you know what you're working with when you're actually testing games. You've got a lot less control over that perfect sort of test bed when you're talking about PCs because of all the variables involved.
Yeah, I mean, I've always got to defer to the general of PC Master Race, which is Olly, over myself. But if you're designing a game for PC, I can imagine that the port to console would be an adjustment. And the problem sounds to me like people have started developing games for console and it's the porting to PC that becomes the problem.
Yep.
So unless you design the game first up for PC, you're making it a little bit easier for you to get to a console perhaps than you would if you design it for a console and try to get it on PC. And I think the thing for PC and what will be coming is obviously the capability will far outstrip the consoles in terms of processing power. The best thing about PC gaming, she says as a PC gamer, is your ability to constantly change and upgrade. If you have the financial ability to do so, you can keep changing out the parts, as new capability comes on board. And a big sort of trend with things like graphics cards and things at the moment tends to be additional sort of elements to it. So your graphics card doesn't just become a graphics card and then it becomes obsolete. It will get like little updates and incremental things, and it will be grown, and it's starting to get its own parts as well that you can upgrade separately. So PC gaming and PC hardware will always be the domain of Steam, I guess, for a lack of a better description. And it's a great way to sort of get your start. And certainly a lot of the indie games that we come across are developed for PC, and then when we talk to them, we say, we'd love to have it on Xbox or PS4, but the process is very difficult for them to do that. It's a very different discussion to have than getting it floated on Steam. So it'll be interesting. Yeah. And of course, VR on PC is just, it's just streets, I guess, at the moment above in terms of its like visual capacity and processing power.
Yep.
Than say the PS. I'm talking about compared to PSVR.
Well, not to mention the pathway to future iterations of the tech as well. I mean, PSVR is what it is. I think we won't expect Sony to release a PSVR 2 for quite some time, because they'll be moving at a snail's pace with that kind of hardware.
On my PS4 Pro, I have my PSVR 2 headset.
Yeah, exactly.
God, so many numbers.
But for PCs, all the different companies and different offerings out there, they're going to be constantly working on new bits and pieces for those. And we talked about it last week with regards to some of the HTC Vive advances, which were shown off at the CES recently. So yeah, I mean, let's
and 3-screen laptops.
Yeah,
they can find them
exactly that require better anti-theft devices. So yeah,
very much
VR is entering into year 2 now, and last year was interesting, sort of watching how things really kickstarted. I mean, technically it's not year 2. It is, VR's been around for longer than that, but in terms of the major consumer devices being on the market, and we're talking about your Oculus Rift, your HTC Vive, and your PlayStation VR primarily there. This is essentially the second big year that we're sort of going into that space. The market is as it is. Where do you think we're sort of positioned now in year 2 with VR? Like, have we gotten over some of the stumbling blocks of the initial launch, and some of the issues we had with supply and demand, and some of the bad news stories that came out about the capabilities of some of these systems and how they weren't really working well together?
Yeah, I think VR has become consumable. I think VR, when it was released in the HTC Vive and Oculus realm, was very much, that seems like a lot of work. How am I going to get that to happen? But I think enough sort of setups are out there, and maybe they've learned enough about their distribution and how they package things to make it a little bit easier for you to consume it and use it. And for VR, now I think people are settled into using it. We're seeing much more people release games and other add-ons with a VR capacity, whether that be fully utilizing the VR world or not. I think we're going to see VR from a hardware position not change a lot, but I think that the games will change significantly. And we are 1 year closer to the HoloLens.
Possibly.
Yeah.
I would love to be pleasantly surprised for them to bust that out in 2017, but I very much doubt that will be the case.
Yeah, I do too.
Can but hope.
So,
Yes,
Olly,
exactly
are you
right,
looking
Olly.
forward to sort of moving your machine capability towards a VR end at some point in the future, or is that something that doesn't excite you terribly?
Oh no, I love the idea of VR. Having played a bit of it now, I am thoroughly sold on VR gaming. I love it. Except for some games. Some games I can see it, like RTSs, I wouldn't particularly want to play in VR. Like that sort of a game, like
You don't
Civ
want to
6.
be God?
No, but like Civ 6, for instance, you play that and you're like, that wouldn't make sense
fair.
to me to be in VR, or like Armello or something. Whereas if you play like Doom in VR, or like
Absolutely.
PT, or the Resident Evil 7
Journey.
demo in VR would be amazing. Journey less so, because you want to be able to see the character. So I reckon any
that's
first-person
true.
games, yes.
Doom is coming in
Racing
VR,
or-
don't forget too. Bethesda might actually be releasing that this or next year. So
Oh, people are going
brilliant.
to vomit.
That is absolutely fantastic.
Lay down a
but-
tarp. Lay down
Yeah, exactly.
a tarp.
Lay down a tarp. But for me, I see it becoming less of a trek to get VR now. Like it'll become easier accessibility, and that's only going to get more and more accessible, which is a very good thing in my opinion.
And there's a lot of places, I mean, this is probably happening all over the world, but there's a whole bunch of places who are offering VR as an experience. So like puzzle rooms and all those types of things. So it's not just consumers who are jumping on board. People are seeing commercial applications for VR, and VR is a lot further past just games. VR can be safety training for this is what happens if you're on an oil rig and, put you in a very real situation and those types of things. So VR will expand exponentially out either way. What it means for games is so much. I'm yet to play a bit of a full-on game. I personally am looking forward to Symphony of the Machine and games like that. I'm looking for, chill out, kind of enjoy the environment, that type of thing in VR. I do not think that you will ever find me playing Doom in VR.
Oh, man. I cannot wait. Cannot wait.
Oh, man.
I want
That
to
would be full on.
badly.
Yep.
It did look really cool, the one that they had at PAX where you had the full setup, like you had the flak jacket, and you were like flinging things over a wall, and they had the green screen set up and everything else.
Yeah,
and I do
that looks amazing.
Yeah, and things like the job simulator and stuff. That looks like great fun. And I think what we're going to start seeing with VR is VR rooms in houses. So it's not the theatre room anymore; it becomes the VR room.
That would be brilliant, but I think it has to become a lot more mainstream first. You might find it in gamer
definitely.
households.
Yeah, in gamer households, I'm just seeing like the games room being converted now and like gutting out the couches and all the comfy stuff and it becoming like a VR room for that type of application. And so also, the idea of being able to like have the computer and everything in the same room. Because if you're going to play it in your lounge room and you have to move your rig outside if it's not already connected to your television and set up everything out there. So it is a lot. I think if they can streamline the connection of PC-based VR, then
VR and laptop is not really a common thing at the moment.
No.
So,
no.
I mean, not that it can't be done, but the number of people actually attempting that, it would be, very, very far and few. Yeah.
The people who stole Project Valerie, the Razer 3 screen
basically.
laptops.
they don't need
Stick
VR
on your
though.
face.
Exactly. They just
Rotate
wrap it
your-
around their face. Yeah.
Interesting for VR as well as starting to see a lot more Let's Play and streaming and those types of things, which we were talking about earlier in the year being sort of earlier last year, being a sort of a major challenge and a barrier to it. People didn't understand it. There was going to be barriers to us being able to watch what it was like. You'd have to sort of know someone who had one, but there's definitely a lot of content out there at the moment about people streaming VR, which I think is making it a bit more accessible and fun. It is still a little bit like the Wii. It is still a little bit of for people outside of gaming circles, it is still a little bit of a novelty, I guess, which is the sort of the PSVR kind of realm. But we'll see. I cannot wait to what we are looking back at the end of this year at the moment. I feel like we are poised for lots of change in the way that we consume games and media. It's already the line starting to become blurred, like we were talking about, consoles being media centers. So more blurring, please.
Well, I think Olly pretty much nailed it in terms of VR, capability, in that what we're really looking for is not just that one breakout game title. I think it's going to be more of those big breakout sort of consumer uses for VR. We started to see a little bit of that last year with the Google Earth stuff. That was incredible, but we need more of that. Like if we want this to be a household item, we need to actually appeal to people who aren't gamers as well as, get the gamers on board by having, some of the best titles that you can only play on VR as well. So, yeah.
See, my thing for VR that'll make it a commonplace thing, and this is a very down the road dream, and this is for the non-gamers. So this includes me because I enjoy watching the sports. But can you imagine VR sports?
It would
Because
be
you know how they
amazing.
have the cameras
Amazing.
on like F1 car driver helmets, cricket player helmets, all that sort of stuff. Being able to switch to like, what's this player doing on the field? Let's see their POV. Stuff like that.
It's like when you start spectating
amazing.
Overwatch, but you start spectating AFL.
Well, it's no different. It would be
and
no
you just
different.
click between
you could go,
players.
give me the field view, give me the top down. Like that for me would be glorious. Being able to switch camera at will and then have a VR option.
Gosh, can you imagine the premium they pay for that on Foxtel?
I would pay the shit out of that.
Actually,
I would
be
happily
cool.
throw money
That would be
at
kind of
that.
cool. I would watch more sport if it was in VR.
I wouldn't be interested in sports so much, but concert experiences, absolutely. That sort of thing.
Yeah, like anything like that. any experience like that would be glorious.
I can definitely see there being like in conjunction with Sony PlayStation VR presenting Coldplay live at some cool amphitheater
Venue in Europe that you can't travel to because you're in Australia.
And
and they'd have
they could do a VR sort of version
could
of a
even-
gardening channel, and then Jam would be all on board. She could actually.
she could weed. But also, for that Coldplay concert, and you can have this idea for free, Sony. You pay based on where you want your VR head to sit in the crowd. So you can play like entry level, which is your nosebleed seats, or you can play like a premium to be like a VR camera in like the mosh pit's the wrong word for a Coldplay concert, but you know what I mean.
Rocking
My
it
goodness,
out,
they could
headbanging
tear it
section.
up.
No,
Yeah,
they could add accessories to it. If you actually want to be in the nosebleed section, they could actually put something on to give you real nosebleeds. There you go.
That's more AR.
No. Well, anyway, lots of cool things to look forward to. I think VR is just getting warmed up, and I'd be, interested in seeing more of the plans that are actually being worked on for stuff at the moment. Because it seems like a lot of it's kind of still undercover. Maybe we'll hear a lot more about it at E3 and some of the like this year. But it just seems like there's a lot that's happening that hasn't been announced or revealed yet. So I'm keen to know more. We will see.
Very excitingly, we will definitely be able to play the Switch at PAX.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more
Almost
excited to play Wii U.
I guess unless
not
Nintendo
Wii U,
don't come.
VR, Wii U.
The VR,
Jesus.
yeah. There will
Or
be,
VR.
what it will mean for cons is a lot of baby wipes in VR. We already experienced this at PAX.
I'm okay with hygiene.
Yeah, no, me too. But the poor people and the poor planet that has to deal with all those baby wipes. But anyway, besides the point.
That's it. All right, well, that probably wraps up our gaming hardware discussion tonight. So, almost as much to talk about as the games, it would seem, even though we did sort of speak about the games a bit. So interesting to see where the Switch will go. I'm sure the deluge of news content on the Switch in general has not ceased and won't do so for a number of weeks yet, until they run out of games to talk about, because they don't have any coming. We will see.
Ouch. They have some.
They have some. We'll see. But in the meantime, let us know what your thoughts on the Switch are, and we'd be keen to know if you're interested in picking one up, and if not, then why not? And you can send that commentary through to us at our email, which is mail@partyloaded.com. We're also on Twitter @partyloadedshow, or you can reach us at Facebook at facebook.com/partyloaded. Hop on our Instagram, which is also partyloaded, or come chat to us on our Steam group, which is, again, just look for Party Loaded in Steam, and we've actually got a link to that on our site. Usually include it with our new episode posts as well. Check out our YouTube channel. We've got a ton of stuff going up on that at the moment. Lots of Let's Plays, some feature videos as well. We've got a big one which I'm just putting the finishing touches on tonight, which I think will be a very, very fun one for a lot of people to watch. So you can now find that at the handy dandy, easy to remember address of youtube.com/channelendgame. And that will sort you out for all of your activity during the week when we're not recording. And then you can get that while you're waiting for us to actually podcast again. There you go. So, this week, what's everyone playing? Any plans? Any cool stuff?
I actually have some very strong plans to play Goat Punks, which is released tomorrow.
Hey.
Hooray!
Nice.
So, and I did have a little play around in the sort of beta copy that we have, and it does seem to have like a beta version of online play. So we'll see what it comes released with, but that would be super exciting for us, and we can actually get a few games in. Yeah.
Yes.
So I've been doing some practice in my defending and my shooting so that I become a goat pro. Goat Punk's on Steam. It won't be expensive. It's a great game, and it's an Australian indie game, so check it out.
Mm-hmm. Ollie, gardening.
Last Guardian.
Gardening.
Yep.
I was just going to say.
You're gardening.
No gardening.
Guardianing, yeah. I'm going to sink a whole bunch more time into Yakuza. I think that game's showing a fair bit of promise, so I'm pretty keen to play some more. And Jam's got a new game that she's been trying to twist our arms into playing with her as well. So
I got the key.
We'll
I got the beta key.
Have to check out what this whole disc jam thing's all about and chat about that next week. So that should be interesting. But yeah, lots of things to do. So let's sign off and actually get some of that stuff done. Until next week, this is Party Loaded signing off.
See ya.
Bye.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.